I went to Super Nintendo World on opening day at Universal Studios Hollywood, and today I'm going to talk to you about everything that went down. Now, I guess you could say this is like my big birthday video for this year because I always do like some kind of special video on or around my birthday. So today I figured I would just sit down here, get in front of the camera, and talk to you about my time there. Before I do though, I want to give a very special thank you to my superstar supporters, including Henry Newman, Jake Winans, who I just so happened to go on this fantastical journey with. And in particular, I want to give a very special thank you to Red Rack, who I personally thank for making this whole trip possible. And the reason why is because he commissioned me not too long ago to do an animation for him, and most of the money I made off of that short went pretty much straight into getting my plane ticket and my 2-day pass at Universal. None of that I think would be possible without his help. So Steven, if you're watching this, thanks. I really do appreciate it. I don't know if I'm gonna go into detail about everything that happened in the trip, because I'm sure a lot of you just want to hear about the Mario stuff, which is not uncommon for my videos, but I don't care. I'm totally cool with that. So I'm going to save the Super Nintendo World stuff for last and go a little bit into everything else that happened over the course of my week in California. The flight there was pretty long, and it wasn't my favorite experience, but I was able to keep myself entertained over the course of those 5.5 hours. So I pretty much spent the entire week at Jake's place, but I was pretty comfortable there. His place is really nice and actually grew pretty close to his cat, Jack. He was very talkative and had quite a few interesting things to say. Jake also works as a digital content strategist for Disney, specifically like their streaming division, mostly with Hulu. Now, since Jake is technically a Disney employee, that means he also gets free +1 and employee discounts for the Disney parks. So we ended up spending a day at Disneyland and Disney California Adventure. And wow, it was truly a magical experience. We also booked reservations for the Naples Italian restaurant at downtown Disney, but on the day of, we ended up missing our reservation time, so we ended up going to the Santa Monica Pier instead, which was also a pretty cool place, although we mostly spent our time at the arcade. And it was a pretty cool place because that was where I got to play Mario Kart Arcade GPDX for the first time. I hate the way Mario Kart arcade games are titled. And they had a Luigi's Mansion machine there too, but it was broken, so we unfortunately couldn't play that. Oh, and they had versus Super Mario Brothers. It was like I was back at the dentist's office. In more ways than one, now that I think about it. That was all on the 16th, and the next day, the 17th, was the opening of Super Nintendo World at Universal, but I'm actually going to skip ahead to our second day at Universal, which was also my last day there. On the second day, we didn't bother going to Super Nintendo World because we already did everything at the park on day one, so we decided to take the studio tour. That was a pretty fun experience. One of my favorite parts was actually the Jaws section, because it was pretty morbid, but also kind of hilarious. The guide, I think his name was Tim, who was a great tour guide, by the way. But anyway, he's calling out to this scuba diver out in the water, and you see him getting attacked by the shark or Jaws, and you see all this bloody water coming out, and you hear him screaming and calling for help, and the Jaws theme is blaring over the loudspeakers, and the guide's just like, nah, he'll be fine. It was so horrible and twisted, but I couldn't help but find it funny. I don't know, I have a soft spot for that kind of humor when it's done right. Now, because that was my last day and my flight home was booked for the next day at like 6 or 7 in the morning, we had to go back to Jake's place a little early so I could get ready. But we forgot to make any real concrete sleeping arrangements for me, so Jake ended up booking me a night at a Days Inn somewhere in town. He also booked me an Uber there, but funny story, when I got to the Days Inn, I went to check in, and it was not the hotel that Jake had booked the reservation for. So he gave me some money for me to get another Uber to take me to the actual hotel. And for the time being, I was just kind of stuck there. But while I was waiting, I ended up making a friend.
Oh my gosh, look at you. Hi. Meow. Hello. What are you doing out here all by yourself? Huh?
It was still wearing its collar, so I wasn't sure if it was lost or if it just belonged to somebody that was staying there or worked there, but he really seemed to like me. I named him Goober, and we just hung out together until my Uber came.
What's your name? Oh, how do you spell that? Oh, it's surprisingly very simple.
Playing with my Goober while waiting for my Uber. But eventually the Uber came, said goodbye to the cat. I got to the hotel. I had some extra money, so I DoorDashed some McDonald's for myself. I got a good 6 hours of sleep, woke up at 4 in the morning, booked another Uber, got to the airport, flew home, and that would be it for this video, but obviously we gotta talk about Super Nintendo World. Oh, and I also want to give a shout out to my friend Nikolai. He was supposed to come on this trip with us, but because of personal issues, he wasn't able to make it. Really sorry you couldn't be there, dude, but Jake and I were thinking about you the whole time, so you were there in our hearts. But you know, when it opens in Orlando, let's shoot for that. Anyway, let me tell you about the anxiety that we were plagued with on our way to the park, because the way you actually get into Super Nintendo World, you can't just walk in there whenever you want. You actually have to book a reservation time either on the Universal Studios app or at like a reservation station somewhere in the park. We kept checking the virtual line registration early in the morning, like over and over and over again, but all the reservation times were completely booked. But as fate would have it, once we got into Universal Studios and got our tickets scanned, we just so happened to check the app again, and when you know it, there were slots available for us, so we booked them right away. We also stopped at this Super Nintendo World themed gift shop in City Walk, where we ended up getting our power-up bands. As you can see, I got the Luigi one, and Jake ended up getting the Peach one. Also, huge shout out to that cashier for doing the Mario 3 cartoon, Mario and Luigi voices. You are a legend, and I hope you get a raise. Now, when Jake and I looked back on our experience, we both agreed that the best part about Super Nintendo World is stepping into it for the first time, because you go through this giant warp pipe, you hear the sound, all these colorful lights are going, and suddenly you're in Peach's castle, the Bob-on Battlefield painting on the left, a tiny huge island painting on the right, the doors are open, and the entire park is just right there. It really feels like you've entered another world. And as you could probably tell from watching these clips of me, it is truly an emotional, magical experience that words can never truly describe. Anybody who watches my videos will know that I've been a dedicated Mario fan since I was about 4 years old. These characters and this universe mean so much to me, and it's been my mental escape for pretty much my entire life. But now, being able to physically step into that world and be surrounded by all this iconic Mario imagery, I was just freaking out the entire time, and it still just feels like a dream to me. Even the bathroom was magical. I mean, I know it's kind of weird to say, but like you had the new Super Mario Brothers Wii underwater music playing over the speakers, and just this beautiful underwater mural above the sinks. It's really, really lovely and very relaxing, actually. Predictably, because it was opening day, it was very packed. There were a lot of people there. The wait times for certain things were very, very long at points. But at the end of the day, I was really surprised that we actually managed to do just about everything the park had to offer. We got to do all the key challenges, we punched the blocks, we got to fight Bowser Jr., we did the character meet and greets, we got to go on the Mario Kart ride, we even finished off with dinner at the Toadstool Cafe. And no matter how much my legs suffered for it, it was all absolutely worth it. I especially love doing the meet and greets, particularly just for the insanely high quality of the costumes, especially Peach. Like that Princess Peach costume is just absolutely beautiful. And I love there was also one kid behind us who was particularly very excited to see Peach. Oh, speaking of costumes, actually, I absolutely have to talk about this because it was insane. While Jake and I were waiting in line to do the Goomba challenge, there was a couple behind us, and they were cosplaying as the Mario Brothers from the live-action movie. And when I saw that, I knew I just had to get a picture of them. They had the jumpsuits, the hats, the tool belts were the same. The woman who was dressed up as Luigi was even wearing the rock pendant necklace. I don't know if those two are ever gonna find this video, but if they do, you guys are incredible. All right, while the motorcycle guy is being a dick outside, let's talk about the Mario Kart ride. Now, the wait time at the very longest, I think peaked at 2 hours and 10 minutes. It was a highly anticipated ride, as you can imagine. But and I didn't even realize this until we were actually there, but apparently there is a single rider's line. If you're in a group and you don't mind going into separate vehicles, then you can take this separate line, which is much faster. By faster, I mean like less than an hour. The downside is it skips past most of the queue, so you don't get to see stuff like Bowser's office or his throne or whatever. But I've already seen countless clips of that on YouTube, so I already knew what to expect. But we still got to see some cool stuff, like we got to see Bob-ombs and Mecha Koopas on an assembly line. But speaking of the queue, I found it kind of odd that the Hollywood version of Super Nintendo World doesn't have the Yoshi attraction from the Japan park, but despite that, part of the queue for the Yoshi attraction was actually incorporated into the queue for the Mario Kart attraction at the Hollywood park. Stylistically, it just didn't seem to go with the rest of the queue, although we do have that new Yoshi's Island track as part of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass, so in hindsight, maybe it's a little more fitting than I thought. The best way I can describe Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge is it's pretty much Toy Story Midway Mania, but with Mario Kart. But you know what? It was a blast. I absolutely loved it. And then the exit leads you into the 1-Up Factory, which is like the gift shop inside Super Nintendo World. And I already spent a lot on this power-up band, but I knew I just had to get something else while I was there. Something that was particularly unique to the park. So I ended up getting this Super Nintendo World poster just as a nice little reminder of what I was able to do. But we knew there was only one other thing we absolutely had to do while we were there, and that's to eat at the Toadstool Cafe. And that was probably the worst part of the day, only because we had to wait in line for essentially 2 hours. That was absolutely brutal, especially since my legs still hadn't fully recovered from Disneyland the previous day. But when the food finally came, did it make all that standing in line worth it in the end? Yeah, actually, yeah.
All right, so we just finished dinner and dessert, and I think we're both pretty impressed with just the quality.
Yeah, we ate a little too much, but it was pretty good. I mean, I had the spaghetti, and that was really good. Even by like restaurant standards, it was pretty good. The cake was probably the best part. I didn't finish the mushroom soup, but it was very, very good. I think we both agree, like, really, it was just the garlic knots, like...
Yeah. Garlic knots were the most disappointing part.
They were straight up terrible. Like, don't get those if you come here. It's kind of weird because the pasta sauce is really good, but they give you a different sauce with the garlic knots for some reason, and that's quite a bit worse.
Yeah, the Luigi burger was surprisingly really good, and the truffle fries were also very good. The peach cupcake was delicious, but the frosting just really overpowers it, and it just kind of makes it overly sweet.
You might not be able to tell, but there were like 3 layers of frosting, and it's like more frosting than cupcake.
Yeah, it was a little too much. But no, this was a really good meal overall.
We were in line before our reservation time at 7:15, and we didn't get seated till 9, and we didn't get our food till 9:30. You know, I think because of the scenery, people are kind of staying longer, and I think that's what's causing it.
Yeah, especially here, where sometimes the lights will turn blue and the clouds go dark and the screens over here.
It's actually happening now. Yeah, there'll be a Bowser attack kind of in the kitchen. I think that's enticing people to stay, where theoretically in a restaurant and a theme park, you should want to kind of keep people in a revolving door.
Yeah, there's a lot of charm to this place, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely a must hit, but like if you come the first few months this place is open, make sure you block off like 2 hours just up front.
Yeah, unless you got lucky.
You're not going to get lucky.
Now, in general, when I think back to my time at Super Nintendo World, I have almost nothing but positive things to say about it. It was incredibly satisfying as both a fan of Mario and Nintendo. It was such an exciting time, and I was so happy that we got to do so much on such a busy day. But when Jake and I looked back on our time there, we both felt that to really get the most out of your time at Super Nintendo World, these things are pretty much mandatory. You can still get into the park without getting a power-up band. Like, they'll still let you in as long as you book a reservation time, and you can still go on the Mario Kart ride, you can still do the meet and greets, you can still go to the Toadstool Cafe and stuff. You can do all that, but you're really only going to get about maybe 10% of the complete experience. Because without the power-up band, you can't collect coins from punching the blocks. You can't get stamps for finding hidden character emblems throughout the park. And most importantly, you won't be able to do the Bowser Jr. attraction because the only way you can get in is if you collect keys, which you get from the key challenges. So while not everything is locked behind the power-up band, all the interactive elements are, and the interactivity really does add so much to the experience. I think it's important to keep that in mind, especially if you're a parent and you have kids that love Mario games and Nintendo games and want to experience this for themselves and really get the most out of it. Now, of course, you can get away with just enjoying the park for what it is and taking in the scenery and taking pictures with the characters and whatever. But if you really want to get the most out of your experience, you need to get one of these things. And thankfully, the pamphlet has some incredibly useful information for parents who might not know how this kind of stuff works. So yeah, without the power-up band, you're not exactly getting the full Super Nintendo World experience. But if you ask me, $40, maybe a little pricey, but all in all, it's absolutely worth it. And we also found the Mystery Machine. So that's pretty much everything that I did while I was in LA. I had an absolutely great time. I'm super grateful to Jake for letting me stay at his place, and obviously I wish Nikolai could have been there with us too, but while it would have been nice for the three of us to have been together, I'm still pretty happy that I got to experience that at all with somebody. If you've been to Super Nintendo World, whether it's the Hollywood version or the Japan version, what do you think of it? Leave all your random comments down there, and if you're new to this channel, I don't normally do these kind of videos, but I do a lot of Mario and Nintendo-oriented content that you'll probably like. You most likely won't, and I won't blame you if you don't because my videos are terrible. But if you're curious anyway, then you can hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon to be notified of when I put out more videos. Thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time, this is Mark, bidding you all a smashing farewell. Be good, behave, be safe, and I'll see you guys later.